Welcome to the Being.Totality podcast, your sanctuary for all things inner exploration, outer expression, and holistic expansion. This podcast was created to be a safe space for like minded people to gather and have meaningful conversations about their own personal journey. Together, we explore the depths of self inquiry, the authentic expression that emerges from it, and the holistic growth that unfolds along the way. I'm your host, Renee Lucas. Thank you so much for being here and tuning in. I hope that you enjoy the show. All right, welcome back to the Being Totality podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me, Renee, and our guest today is Demond Alvarez. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's Sunday, so it's I'm always good on a Sunday. Sunday for me is always that laid back day, and just kind of mentally unwind and just get ready for the week to come.
Absolutely. It's always a cleaning day for me.
Okay, yeah, that also.
All right, so it's so good to have you here. Go ahead and tell the audience who you are and where you're from.
Okay, so I am Demond Alvarez. I go by Soul of a Man 504. Those who keeping for those who are out there in social media world. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Great food, great people, great culture. Also, I'm a multi-genre author. I am a podcast host, such as yourself. I'm a social media influencer. I also do speaking as well. I'm a spiritual consultant. So I'm man of many talents, and I wear many hats.
Oh, that's awesome. It's always good to have a lot of different hats on because in this world today, that is beneficial.
Right. It really is. It really, really, really is.
Yes, for sure. Now, when it comes to what you do, tell the audience like a little bit about what you do. Like when it comes to like your spiritual practice and things that you do on social media.
On media, especially like more like TikTok and YouTube, you'll find my stuff to be more, I would say, playful, but yet uplifting, so to speak. So I grew up around my cousins are a bunch of clowns, so that yeah, so that transferred into me. So like people say, "Oh man, we can't take you seriously," even though we do have a lot of even though we do have a lot of serious moments in our lives. Spiritually, I help those that go on their massive journey, and I help them to compress it and to make it all make sense with me using my plethora of spiritual gifts. I tell people, as the spiritual journey is profound, your journey is going to look and feel how it's going to look and feel for you. That's the one main thing that I tell people, and so I help them to make what is unbelievable, you know, believable, and to make it, just to make it make sense, just to let them know that there is someone else out there that has gone through something kind of similar, like you have.
Absolutely. And that's always useful because sometimes going to therapy and utilizing all these other things don't work. It doesn't work for all people. So it's
Right.
good to have,
That's true.
yeah. So it's good to have like different options out there. Like what modalities do you use in your practice? Like, do you use meditation or anything like that?
What I use, well, I like to help people more or less with like breathing techniques, so to speak, so that they can, one, be calm, because I know a lot of people may be a little, let's say, jittery, when they may come to me, as call myself a spiritual consultant. They may go to someone who may call themselves a healer or a psychic or an oracle, or whatever hat that whatever hat said individual whatever hat said individual uses. But I would say, the power of God, the power of the Holy Spirit, ancestral wisdom. I use, and all of my experiences, and they've been layered. I use all of my experiences to help individuals kind of get over that hump, because they'll get to a point where they don't need me anymore, which is great, and then they can't go on and just do they continue on their track.
Absolutely. Because like sometimes people, well, It's not even sometimes. Most times people need a starting point so they can branch off into other things, and that's
Mhm.
what they're supposed to do. But most people don't know where to start. So that's a beautiful thing. When it comes to that, let me ask you, are you utilizing the perspective of like Christianity and the African ancestry type of perspective when it comes to the spirituality?
Well, you could say a bit. Try to, for me, I try to meet people where they are spiritually. So if someone says, "Oh, I'm, Christian," or I'm this, or I believe in, I follow one of the ATRs, or I vibe with my ancestors. So, for me, I meet them where they are. To answer your question, it depends. So there could be a hierarchy. And the hierarchy for you may be a little bit different than maybe one of your friends or someone else on social media. So, I try, I do my very best to really and truly meet them where they are with, with no judgments.
Okay, yeah, yeah, for sure. That's what we all try to do for sure. And that's why going to like specific practitioners and healers, etc., is really important. You can't just go to anyone. You have to go to a person that is going to meet you where you are
Yeah.
so that there's no judgment and there's no, I want to say, like a forcing to be pushed in a certain direction,
Right.
And there's a lot of that going on. So really love the fact that I feel like you're open to pretty much everything, just non-religious, religious, agnostic, even atheist. Because like even though they say that they don't believe in anything, deep down inside they do. They just
Right,
don't know what
right,
it
right.
is.
Exactly right. That part.
Yeah, because, like, sometimes when I talk to a atheist or someone that's a little bit different, I always be like, "Well, do you believe in energy?" Because energy is
Mhm.
everywhere, and that can be a pinpoint for someone to start their journey and start to look inward and really question a lot of things, because that's what I try to encourage people to do is really question what people don't want to have questioned, either like within yourself or just in society, and sometimes both, because a free thinker is amazing and you get to learn so much and you can gather all that and utilize it as knowledge and wisdom to help guide. And the more open you are, the better guide you can be to someone, depending on their situation.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I believe that it should never be forced. It should never be forced because one, you have to figure out where that individual is on their journey. They can be, we can go through many spiritual awakenings. So this could be the third or the fourth or the beginning of what we call a spiritual awakening. So they can be like, they could say like, oh, I'm going through all of these things and I'm feeling all of these emotions, like, because for me personally, I didn't, when my gifts were activating, I didn't have like, like some people say, oh, my grandmother and my grandfather or this person did this and that. But for me, I didn't have anybody. It was like the old traditional, oh, don't do this, don't do that. That's evil. And, this is of devil. But you have like thousands of people out here, with their intuition and waking up and seeing and feeling all these things around the world. So, a lot of that stuff is, the majority of it is not evil. Just breaking it down, making it make sense.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that because there's so much out here, and a lot of people don't know how to begin to break down what they feel. Like you know how you can feel like there's a change going on, but you can't really pinpoint it. And then sometimes, like when you experience change, it can be scary. And then people run from it because it's like, oh, it's uncomfortable and I don't know if this is good or bad. And they just don't know, and they don't have a guide to tell them that, like, no, this is good, and this is how you navigate it, or this is how you can start to navigate it and then blossom into something else.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Because like I said, my journey has been like very layered, and I've learned to embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. And just to look at it that it makes us, very powerful, and who we are, and in our, in our each of our individual journeys. Tell people beware of someone who says that they know it all, because none of us know it all. We're still,
Exactly.
there. I tell people all the time, there are levels to this. You can feel confident in what you do and who you are. There's no problem with that. Nobody's telling you not to feel that way, or not to be that. But it's just the point of continuously letting yourself grow, and hitting new marks, and letting the journey take you on this beautiful path that you're going.
Absolutely. And you do have to confront the good, the bad, the ugly, the weird, the OMG, dot, 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 emoji face, and all
Right.
of that. And sometimes, like, well, most times, it's super scary, but, like, you have to confront it because that is part of the journey, and if you skip it, then you may hit a wall because you didn't go through an in particular thing to get to unlock the next way to through the path, you know?
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of people in the world are fearful of, like, looking inward and really, like, being curious. And I would like to know, like, when you talk about your journey being layered, how did it start? Like, when did you notice, like, I want to go down this path and I want to learn a few things? Like, when did it start for you?
Oh, it started, probably, when, it probably started about 20, I don't know, 2015 for me. I would say, or I would say it restarted, so to speak. Because I think, we maybe it starts as kids, because we have this grand imagination when we're kids, and then we get older, we go through all of this stuff, and then we get into adulthood, and we have a tendency to forget about, our imagination, and all of this, that childlike innocence and all of that stuff. For me, it started about 2015. One thing about me is that, I've always been described as an old soul, but a kid at heart. I've always been able to, like, use my imagination, so to speak, and with my like, with my gifts and things like that, and being able to see, hear, talk to, beyond the veil, so to speak. People say the veil is thinner now than it's ever been, and I agree with that. So having, having all of that, and for me, it was like, in the beginning, it was almost like feeling around in the dark, you know, and
Mhm.
then going through these emotions, finding out that you're a generational curse breaker for your family, and all of these things, and and with all of that, and understanding, like, what, oracle cards, and divination, and all of this, all of this, all of these different, uh energies, and people stuff that people say are forbidden. Come to find out, for, not maybe not all, but for some of us, these things are, these are gifts. These are gifts. Wherever you want to say that they come from, in a positive way, if you want to say it goes down your ancestral bloodline, but these are gifts, and these were things that help to, I guess, foreshadow, for me, where I am now, and where I'm going with it, naturally, in the future.
Absolutely. When it's really hard when you are the black sheep of the family and you're breaking the generational curse because everything is against you at that in particular
Hmm.
time because you're carving out your own way and everyone's saying like no 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 you can't go over there, you got to go over here, you got to follow the person in front of you. No, you don't.
Right.
And
So,
it can a lot of people get shunned from their families and all of that, and then the journey gets lonely, but that's the part that starts the journey, like, you being by yourself in the quiet, in the stillness, and then sitting with your own thoughts and going from there.
Right. And it's almost like saying, and I agree with you 100%, because it is very layered. The higher you go, the more people are going to start falling off. That is, and that's not easy for a lot of people. I've had friendships ended, and I've been knowing people for 15, 20 years. Overnight, they see you meditating with some cards. It's like, oh no, you're a vampire.
Right.
Yeah, it's like if I walk outside and when it's daylight, I'm just gonna spontaneously combust. And that's just not the truth. It's just the fact of it is that those people are very, like I said, you have to meet people where they are. It's like we don't have these kind of surface level conversations because we're probably talking about future events. We're saying like, oh, I had a dream last night. My grandmother came in and we were, I was in the kitchen and it smelled just like it did, 20 years ago. And she was showing me this, she was showing me that, this happened and that happened. For a lot of people, they don't have really necessarily have the help. They don't. And within that, that could be rough, because a lot of people end up in mental institutions, for saying like, I've heard the stories. I've heard the stories, yeah, my family just had me committed. They just kind of throw you away. They think like something is something is really wrong, like something is really wrong with that person. But no, that person, that person is not that person is normal. I mean, imagine like all of these amazing gifts that Jesus had when when if you believe he walked here. Imagine how they, if he was around doing these miracles, how certain parts of society would treat him today,
Mhm.
just based off of that, so well, one thing I'm happy for is that a lot of people are, especially with social media, a lot of people are more enlightened, especially like with working with their young kids and helping them develop their gifts and their abilities.
Absolutely. I like that resonated with me what you said about like you hearing the stories because I have a theory about schizophrenic people. Like
Mhm.
I feel like society says that they're crazy, but they're not crazy. They unlock a spiritual gift that they don't know how to navigate. That's what that is.
Right. And yeah, and the first thing, and I'm all big for mental health. I've gone through my battles with that depression and all of that stuff. But think that the first thing and I'm not against medication and things of that nature, but if that helps, cool. The first thing they want to do is diagnose you and like overly medicate you for
Mhm.
something that is like natural, supernatural, divine, however you want to look at that. This is something that is supposed to be benefiting, not just you, but possibly, possibly like the people around you, your bloodline, and and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like society, well, it's not even a feeling. I know that society loves labels. So when society labels something, it's usually because they don't understand it or it goes against the structure that's already laid out for society. And if you deter from that structure that's already been built, which goes back to the follow the person in front of you theory,
Mhm.
I feel like you're either going to be looked at as crazy or you are a bum or all of that low energy, low vibrational type of talk. And I feel like a lot of people that accidentally or even knowingly or is aware of themselves changing and they're unlocking a certain path after certain people in their family, they stop speaking to them or they just leave or, friendships and et cetera, et cetera. I feel like, I don't know, they don't know where to find the help because majority of the time people come in and out of your life in seasons, and that
Mhm.
includes family. Sometimes you have to get rid of those family members that is not I don't wanna say woke, open-minded and able to look at things from different perspectives than the perspective that's already given.
Mm,
Does that make
mhm.
sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. It's like I think you hit the nail. I think you hit the nail on the head with what you just said. That everybody is. Some people may leave, and then some people may come back later on. Or some people may just never get it. You're weird because you don't like football, or you're weird because you're maybe some kind of inventor or something like that. But
Mhm.
a lot of people don't get it until it starts making money. Then once it starts making money, then it's not, then it's like you're not that weird individual anymore. It's like, always knew you could do it, and they try to come and latch on to be a part of your journey and all of this good stuff, but like you said, it's just some people, as you're elevating, some people are just gonna fall off, be it friends, be it family. Some people, it's their mind is just set where it is. Like some people say, oh, you're just stuck in your ways. And for some people, that's just what it is, even though and these are people who sometimes these are people who go to church, and read that Bible cover to cover. And I'm like, in that Bible, it talks about it talks about miracles, and it talks about wonders, and it talks about supernatural, talks about angels and demons, in all of these things. I had a conversation with my cousin a few weeks ago, and I told him, I said, the same people that are, if they're Christian, if let's just say if a biblically accurate angel walks into the church, and people will freak out. The
Yeah.
people, they were like, they will freak out. That's why, every time there's a instance of an angel in the Bible and it reveals itself to someone else, what says, be ye not afraid.
Mhm.
But a lot of people, and I'll go back to this, and like I said, there's levels to this. There's levels to this. It's just like with college, there's your, associates and bachelor's, master's, doctorate, and all of that good stuff. So it's like, and some of us, without even having to go to college, some of us are on a doctoral level and higher, as far as the spirit, that we could teach, we could start courses, teach courses, and all of that good stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that we are still unraveling, just about our journeys and about just the the nature of the journey within itself.
Absolutely. You said a lot of good stuff there because OMG, like just because you read the Bible and you go to church every Sunday and you go to Bible study and all that stuff does not mean that you actually have a one-on-one relationship with God, because
Hmm.
that is in you. Like you have to unlock that, And reading the Bible is one part, but if you are not looking inward and really, how do I say it? Really like getting to know yourself. Because from the thing that I take from the Bible is that you need to know yourself in order to be able to get to God. Because now you're talking about personal stuff. You're talking about boundaries. Talking about values. You're talking about action. And when I talk about action, I mean like how you treat people. What do you eat? How are you presenting yourself? How are you thinking? And all of
Hmm.
that stuff. All of that goes into one. All of that is in you, and that in itself helps you get closer to God. And for me personally, I'm a pantheist. So I am a believer in energy. I believe that God is energy and God is everywhere. And I'm also a yogi as well. So I kind of live my life by the 8 limbs of yoga. And then I also keep in mind the energy work from chakras, all the 7 chakras,
Hmm.
all of the chakras, because that plays into it as well. That goes into the metaphysical. It goes into, what you cannot see but know it's there, because I've had those situations where it's like someone's trying to sneak up on me and the hairs on the back of my neck goes
Yeah,
up and I. Yeah. And that's a sign, that's a metaphysical sign, and a lot of people ignore just the small things, and that's a really tiny thing, and all of it mashes together to help you learn more about you so that you can be well, if you're religious, you can be deeper in your faith and, you will be able to recognize in particular things. And I feel like, I mean, most churches don't teach that. Like, you really have to be careful about the churches that you go to, no matter if it's like Catholic, Presbyterian,
Mhm.
Baptist, Church of Christ, and all that. It's very layered when it comes to religion as well, and a lot of people think that, "Oh, I just need to pick a church where I like the people and I like the sermon." Are they really preaching the sermon? Like, are they really, like, teaching correctly instead of just, like, trying to, you know, build an extra wing on their church and stuff? Like, it just
Right.
gets a bit sticky.
Yeah, and I think, people are more aware of that, especially the churches and stuff like that, and watching the preachers, with their $1,000,000 jets. I mean, every church doesn't have like millions of dollars, or like thousands and thousands of people going every day. But I think people are just like more aware of like, okay, cool, we're gonna pick up this collection. Let's start like recently, the guy was like, okay, we're gonna start with 1,000 plus 1,000, and the lady gave 1,000 and like 200, something like that. And he was like, no, no, y'all aren't getting it. What if she only had that? I mean, I personally would have took my money, I would have walked out, and you would have never saw me again, but
Right.
that's just me though. But that's just, a lot of people are becoming more awakened. It's just the preacher, his wife. These aren't just and the people at the top. These aren't supposed to be the people that are prospering. You're supposed to be prospering in your life as well. You're supposed to be doing great, and it's not just about material things, but your health, your wealth, your mentality. All of these things are just supposed to be way up here. And like you said, you can learn so many different things from so many different places. Like you said, I've learned, are there other gods and deities out there? Of course. I mean, you could spend a lifetime just looking at one set in one, India, all over Africa, I mean, the Asia. You could go you can go all over the world and back again, finding what, but you just have to naturally find out you just have to naturally find out what works for you.
Absolutely. The thing that got me was, like, in my journey, I've always been an introvert, and I've always wanted to learn more about myself than I did about others.
Mm.
So, that kinda started, like, with, like, journaling and stuff and me
Mhm.
asking myself questions, and I literally thought I was crazy, like, when I started doing that because, like, I'm asking myself a question. Like, who does that, right?
Right.
But that turned out to be a wonderful thing because I learned more about myself, and I was always interested in, like, how my own brain works
Mhm.
and what my personality type was and what exactly is the actual definition of boundaries and values and things of that nature because, in uh, ooh, good lord, like, a lot of people don't use words correctly. Like, they mean one thing, but the definition of that word does not mean what they're trying to say,
Mhm.
and it it's like, "Whoa." So I had to literally do all of the foundational research myself on myself, and that led me to learning yoga. It got me interested in yoga, and then because of my yoga path, I went into herbalism and gardening and different, yoga uh, practices and meditation and all of these different things. And that led me to so much stuff. Like, I don't even have a problem with like saying no anymore. I used to have an issue with like telling people no, and now like it's my favorite word. So I feel like the most important thing, no matter if you're Christian or non Christian or atheist, whatever, is to look inward. Like, you have to look inward because if you don't know yourself, then the world is going to tell you who you are and it's going to mold you in a way that's
Mm.
not. good for you or spiritually aligned with yourself and ultimately destroy you, you know?
Right.
A lot of people, they take their own lives and stuff because they're so like they're going in a spiral and they don't know how to get
Mhm.
out of it and they probably don't even know where to get the right help because again, therapy may not be for everybody because therapy didn't work for me, but yoga did it for me. And, frequency work and, listening to in particular frequencies and music and things like that and journaling and all that. So, and looking inward, doing your introspection work is vital no matter who you are or where you are in the world. Like, you really have to know yourself
Mhm.
and that's foundational to anything, and then that can bloom into whatever you need it to be, whatever that journey takes you. Like, explore it and, do what you need to with it, but inner exploration is the most important, and I feel bad for some people because, like, in my last podcast episode that I did, I was telling the guest about, like, how you have, like, these families that have, like, only lawyers or doctors in it, and it's like, "No, you can't do this and this and this." Like, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer or
Mhm.
insert whatever, and it's like, what if that person wants to be, like, a BMX rider or, like, a professional skateboarder or something? Like,
Right, right, right. Yeah, and a lot of people look at that and, especially in some cultures, it's like African, Indian, Asian cultures, it's like you have to you're gonna marry this person and that's their culture and that's just what that is, not judging. But it's like I think in America we're a little bit more free, I mean, sometimes not that much, but we're just a little bit more free as far as trying to find a path, and there's nothing wrong with being a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or like an engineer, that's your or teacher, in a classroom. You find that that if that's but that has to be your true calling. You have to have. I had like jury duty last week and I'm sitting there just looking around and I'm thinking like, man, I don't know if I could sit here all day having somebody's like their literal freedom in the palm of my hands. Cause once you bang that gavel, like good, bad, that's just what that is. But like you said, you got to go behind the curtain. You have to take that deep dive, take a deep breath, and you have to you have to, even if sometimes you have to teach yourself how to swim and, in a kind of in a spiritual kind of a way, cause the spiritual journey will take you into some deep waters. It will take you into some very deep waters. A lot of dealing with God is powerful. Dealing with like any of the deities in the ATR, that's powerful within itself. You said doing yoga, doing yoga is very powerful. Getting to that point of enlightenment and having your third eye open, having visions, envisioning yourself doing greater things in your life. That's very powerful. But these are like I said, levels and very much so teachable moments for you within yourself to just to kind of get there. Also, finding your own tribe, so to speak. We talked about um getting to certain level, people falling off. But I see where people fall off. New people, new situations. They come within your path as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's yeah, I completely agree with that. You really need to make sure that what you're doing is something that you want to do
Hmm.
and go from there and not be fearful of the path because you being fearful of the path is part of the quest and you have to ram right through it, and navigate on how to filter those emotions and try to figure out like what it means and, turn it into a learning lesson and get something out of it because you're not going to go through it for no reason. Like you're supposed
Hmm.
to learn something from it. And that's for, if you're religious or not. you're going to learn something from the journey in general, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. That's why, I always tell people keep a journal, definitely keep a journal by your side because you never know when you get ideas or you never know when something's going to come through in a dream or, or things like that. Even going outside to nature, going in your garden, touching a tree, going by the rivers, the ocean, you never know what's going to be like in an amazing way taken away and then given back to you.
Absolutely. Do you have, like, a personal practice that you do to keep yourself grounded and to protect your energy?
Yeah, yeah. For me, I do a few things. For me, prayer is important. Meditating, visualizing, going out. But my biggest thing is probably going out to the ocean. Just being able to sit there and just kind of sit there and just like whatever is going on, just let it go. Just let it
Yeah,
go.
be present.
And yeah, and just kind of like watch the ocean and kind of listen and as far as what's to come next. It takes it like I said levels to kind of maybe get to that point, but um yeah, and just being around, I would say, like-minded, being around like-minded.
Absolutely, absolutely. For inner exploration, like, when you hear those words, what does it mean to you personally? Like, when you hear the words inner exploration, do you get a sense of feeling of, like, just, like, being still and listening to your thoughts or doing, like, a deep dive into your own personality or how your mind works, etcetera?
Saying deep diving. Yeah. So for me, yeah, I think for me it's more like moods and moments, just taking the time to go within, taking the time to go within and listening. Like you said, going to therapy. Be powerful for someone else, but it may not work for you. For me being so enveloped spiritually, I would have to talk to someone who is, not just trained educationally, but also can understand what I'm, also kind of meet me where I am and beyond, like in a very powerful spiritual way, and I think kind of far few and in between. There are kind of few people on the planet that can do that, that
Yeah.
that yeah, that really that can just get you, and just let you be, you just be, just let you be your natural authentic self, so to speak. But for me, it's like Bruce Lee said, like he said, like be water, my friend. He says if
Mhm.
you put water in the cup, it becomes the cup. You put water in the teapot, it becomes the teapot. It said water can crash or flow. So be water. So that's
Yeah.
my thing. So we become, we become boundless, we become shapeless in the things that we can do. People for me, like you said, introverted, from one introvert to another. It took me a while to get here. My family probably saw me, it was like, I don't know.
Mm,
But I was able to, do the normal things that they say, hey, finish college, finish high school and, career and all of that good stuff. So, I was able to do all that stuff. But I knew, I knew then as I know now, there are greater things out there, and if you can kind of wrap your mind around it, like I find myself traveling more and all of that stuff, just gaining these amazing experiences. And for things that are yet to come, a lot of people kind of see the times that we're living in, but they don't see the shifts like we can see them or how we can how we can feel them in a spiritual sense. Just to say that, hey, I am right where I need to be. And, we know that amazing things are going to be happening within our lives. Like we're going to be okay. Now, the rest of y'all, I don't know, but hey, man, it's going to work out how it's going to work out.
absolutely. I wanna ask you about your gifts, like, when you were well, like, compared to when you started to now, what do you think that your special gifts are? personally?
I mean, there are a lot. There are a lot. But I would say just being able to I would say one main thing, just being able to be patient with people's processes and being able to meet them where they are and just being able to not just just to say that I see you, and in this moment this is what matters, and I can feel like I can feel what you have gone through on your journey. I can feel the tears that have come down your eyes, feel the loneliness, I can feel the thoughts of you know, you being like kind of stuck in that void, you thinking like, oh, what's coming next? Am I really gonna be able to get this? Is this gonna happen? It's kind of like those I don't know if you remember Miss Cleo from like back in the day, kind of like those, yeah, like call me now.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
those moments. But those things are very powerful, and I know that when people um come to you, it's important to them, so so within that time frame it becomes important to me. It's almost like trying to learn how to ride a bike. The first time everything's going to be, you have your training wheels, then the training wheels come off, then you have to be able to be stable. Eventually you move out from your parents, and being able to go out in society, talk to people, and being able to work, for us that feel and have these like gigantic out of this world imaginations and things like that. A lot of times that is not easy. It's not been the easiest thing for me, but I look at it that for me, I look at like, my journey is bigger than me. So the stuff that I go through and grow through, I use that to, just to help people that I come into contact with. But as far as as far as the gifts, I'll say that they're always gifting. Be it whatever people or mediumship, or um the gift to just to be able to speak. And I was talking to somebody about that. Like, some of us have that gift. It's like you go to like somebody, let's say if you go on TikTok and your average basic tarot reader, they're pulling cards or saying, oh, this is going to happen. Some of us have that ability to speak beyond your life, to speak things into your life. We're not just saying like, oh, this could happen, that could possibly happen, and all of this, but we're like, giving you like a whole landscape of amazing things that are coming to you, and we are not just speaking in our lives, but we're speaking into yours as well.
Absolutely. I wrote down a few things that was interesting that you said. So, for one, I think you are a empath. You might be an empath since you feel other people's energy and you can feel like what people have gone through, and you use that to help guide them through in particular things.
Yeah, it's like parts like it's I say like the gifts are kind of more like intertwined at the moment, from where I was to where I am now. I would say they are, sometimes it comes out parts prophetic, as far as speaking of, what's to come in somebody's life, feeling their emotions, seeing their path, feeling, dearly departed loved ones that have gone on to the other side, speaking things that have not yet come, helping them with their dream interpretations. And just like I said, just helping them to and like I used to be a massage therapist, so having that gift of healing, even though I haven't done that in a few years, but now it comes through more of like with my words. So I always say like your words are very, 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 your words are very powerful as far as speaking, the power of the tongue, so to speak. So,
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, your gift, that is very, that's very powerful and very, very, very much important. I think we could be a whole another like TED talk on gifts. And, and like what I've seen and what comes through, it's powerful and that's interesting. I'll just say that a lot of what we heard about as kids, as fairy tales, a lot of that stuff is true.
Yeah.
Which I'm finding, which I'm finding out, and a lot of other people, because a lot of stuff is happening in the skies, and y'all could do y'all research on that. So,
No, like, okay, so I also believe that, like the movies and, cartoons and stuff, there's hidden truths in all of that
oh
because
yeah, very much so.
if there wasn't hidden truth in some of that, then it wouldn't be as good as it is. Like,
Mm.
one of my favorite movies is Law Abiding Citizen, and with the way that the government does certain stuff, like, we're literally seeing that now. And then also another one, good example is the old Terminator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah,
Like,
with AI and some, yeah.
don't we have AI now and the little
Mhm.
robots walking around? Like, oh my gosh, like, we're gonna be Terminator soon or like iRobot or something.
Yeah, yeah, with like, Skynet and all of that stuff like that. So yeah, no,
Yes.
and that's interesting because a lot of the stuff, we saw back in the day as science fiction, a lot of that stuff is happening now, like
Mhm.
right before our eyes. So it's like a lot of those, it's like they were in a sense preparing us for, the Matrix and all of that stuff. They were preparing us for, what we're seeing now. Now the people who folks would say, "Oh, that's the tinfoil hat people." They're just, they're just out of their minds. Now, those people aren't seeming so out of their minds because a lot of this stuff is, like people are just, like I said, people are seeing and experiencing this stuff all over the world. It's like, where are the Ghostbusters when you really and truly need them? Like if you
Right.
if you saw that movie, so yeah,
I
so
love
it's
the
this
Ghostbusters.
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff it's a lot of stuff that's happening, and it's a lot of stuff that's about to happen, and it's a lot of stuff that's, just going to continue to happen.
And, the thing is, I think there's a trick to it that, like, the higher ups, they think that we're like stupid. So they put it in our face so that we won't
Mhm.
believe it because it's like, oh, it's just the movie. It's not real, you know? And I feel like when the higher up people put things in our face, it's usually from like a cartoon show or a movie or a, documentary or something like that,
Mhm.
but they don't think that we're going to take it serious because most people are still stuck in the matrix and they're not picking up on the in particular cues, you know?
Right.
And they believe that most of us are not going to believe it because, hey, that sounds like this movie. Or it's like, I keep seeing the TikToks on like, The Simpsons already predicted this. And then
Right,
they
right,
show
right,
like
right.
the
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah, yeah.
those are hilarious, but those are, like, the hidden little things, and I'm not saying that, that is, like, spot on, like, believe it when you see it, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that keep it in mind because it's going to come back up at some point.
Mhm.
We just don't know when because, COVID was literally Resident Evil, but it just got contained instead of like, "Oh, it's an outbreak, and now the world is like zombie land and stuff."
Right. I remember doing like COVID, people talking about like they were like zombies and stuff, out there, people out there who were kind of like walking around like zombies and stuff. I remember those stories. And then once the COVID ended, though, those stories just kind of disappeared.
Mhm. That's crazy. I never heard the zombie stories, but I did hear that, like, the government is low key trying to, like, kill off people because they feel like there's too many people, so they put COVID into society to get rid of, like, people that they, you know felt like, there's too many people in this area and all this and that, and I was hearing those type of stories, but I don't know because, like, they did make it mandatory, and then there was people complaining about wearing the mask and all this and that, so I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna start journaling again. I'm gonna journal during this time," and I got, like, a whole 2 journals of like, what's going on and,
Mhm.
date stamped and all that stuff because, like, if I don't write it down, I don't believe anybody, like, probably 5 generations from now would believe that stuff.
Right. Oh man, I wish, and I know some of our folks didn't know how to read and write, but I wish the ones that did and that had these gifts, and they would have wrote stuff down, because looking, like through TikTok and social media, it's like there were like some really powerful, famous people that looked like us, and the hoodoo workers and and all of that, and people from miles around would go to them, for different herbs, and when the root workers were the doctors and things like that, back in the day. So yeah, but like you said, the when it comes to like the COVID, and we were kind of like indoors, and people would, some people say, well, those were like test runs for what you're seeing today, with how the government, they're snatching people up, and and all
Mhm.
of that stuff. But the interesting thing is that people didn't care about that until it started happening to other people that didn't look like us. So
Absolutely.
now it's like, we all have to go. No, we don't. Like, y'all have to go. Like, seriously.
We in the house chilling.
Right. That part.
I love that. Another thing that I pointed out, like from everything that you said, I feel like you, one of your gifts is the ability to not only be patient, like extremely patient, but to also see things in a holistic way and from different angles, different perspectives. Because again, you're meeting people like where they are in your spiritual practice, like when you're taking on clients and they're booking you and things of that nature. And I think that that is beautiful and that is a great like foundational gift as well because you need to be open. Like you have to your brain has to be
Mhm.
open and curious enough to be able to take on all of these different things, even things that you have not experienced yourself, but to be able to try to comprehend it and understand it from a different person's perspective, that is amazing. Some people, well, not even some, a lot of people cannot do that. Like they cannot do that.
Yeah, for a lot of people, they come across, they are who they are. Like, they don't have the ability to kind of shift and adjust. And I can do that because I've been through a lot, you know, and I've through my spiritual walks, not just on this side, but on the other side. Like, I've been able to, I'm able to, I'm able to do that. But like you said, that's a gift. Just like everybody in the world won't be able to run your podcast, like you can. Or like when if you've written books, or you start writing books, there's just going to be certain perspectives or certain ways that you have to kind of look at kind of certain things, like how you can, like, correct me if I'm wrong, like you have the ability to kind of, you're kind of like part detective in a sense where you can look at stuff through the microscope, So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So see, that's where one of the gifts comes in, just to kind of be able to, not to put you in a box, but just to be able to, um, say like certain things about you, maybe like a characteristic, or something like that, But
Absolutely.
yeah, but for but and just for you, you got some really amazing things coming up. So keep doing your podcast. As I applaud you for doing this, and again, thank you for having me on. So you're gonna meet some very intriguing people.
For
That's
sure.
gonna, yeah,
Definitely.
that's gonna, that's really gonna spark your mind. Like, I could probably a case study within myself, So, but you're going to be able to do some amazing things and take this and kind of blow it up and make it even more massive than, what it is and what it's going to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the goal.
Right.
And the last thing that I wanted to point on, and this came up in my last episode as well, is the difference between a teacher and a guide. Like, a lot of people consider themselves teachers, but They're actually guides. And I used to believe that I was a teacher until I realized that I'm a way better guide than a actual teacher, I feel like. I feel like it's 50-50, but I'm way more better in, like, pushing like, it depending on the person in the
Mhm,
situation and what's going on. I can guide you to something that's going to help you, that's going to be effective in your daily life quicker than I can teach you about a in particular thing and then let you, like, run with it, you know?
mhm.
And I think that that was another thing that was vital in my own journey because, like, everybody always says, like, when you learn a lot of things, you wanna teach it. But maybe teaching it may not be the best thing. Maybe guiding someone through wisdom and knowledge is a better way. And some people say that that's still teaching, but it's not. That's 2 different things, you know?
Yeah, true.
And I feel like you are a open-minded guide that is gifted in seeing things in the whole and from different perspectives based off where people are in that present moment in their life, and that is phenomenal. And the fact that you even got to that point is amazing because some people don't even get to that point. Like, they get scared and they run away.
Yeah, like I said, there's levels to it. Certain people they may get to a certain point. It's like I like to use this example. If the first Doctor Strange movie, when he went to the Ancient One and he found out like there was this guy, he healed himself from he had like a spinal cord injury. And he was able to heal himself and walk again. So Doctor Strange went and, Doctor Strange went and talked to the guy. He was like, well, why didn't you, continue? He was like, well, that's all I needed. He said, I just wanted to walk again. So the guy was on the basketball court, shooting basketball. Like, and he used that, what he learned to just, to just to have a normal, I have a normal life again. But, I don't know. For me, I don't know. A lot of things in my life is not normal.
Yeah.
So so I just keep going with it, man. I just keep driving, I just keep driving the car to see, how far I'm gonna go and where it's gonna take me.
Absolutely, and it's definitely gonna take you far, and you're gonna learn a lot more, and you're gonna be very, very fruitful as long as you don't give up, and that's also vital as well. So, with that being said, that's gonna wrap up this episode. Go ahead and tell the audience, like, where they can find you and book a session and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can so you can find me on you can find me mostly on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I am across the board, of course my government name, Demond Alvarez, but you can find me as Soul of a Man 504, across the spectrum of social media. My website is www.soulofaman504.com. You can just hit up my website, hit me up on TikTok, or we can just take it.
Awesome. I love that. And I will be sure to put all of your contact information and your website and all of that in the show notes for this episode. And that's going to wrap us up. Thank you so much for joining me today with this great talk. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. This was an amazing talk. Yeah, we definitely have to circle back and do this again, a little later on.
For sure. For sure. All right. Thank you for joining me in this space of introspection and expansion. I hope today's conversation offered guidance, clarity, or a moment of resonance that supports you on your path to deeper alignment. If this episode spoke to you, I invite you to subscribe, share with someone who might benefit, and leave a review. It truly helps the community grow. For more resources and offerings from the Tranquil Yoga Studio and the Being.Totality platform, you can connect with us on our social media channels or visit our main website at tranquilyogastudio.com. Until next time, continue honoring your truth, nurturing your spirit, and stepping into the totality of who you are.